This is Oppo's new flip foldable, the Find N3 Flip. This flip phone is available globally and it packs some nice improvements over the previous model. I'm Will for GSM Marina, and let's see what the Oppo Find N3 Flip has to offer in our full review. Oppo's Find N2 Flip came out last year as their first globally released foldable, and the Find N3 Flip is this year's upgrade. Probably the biggest change is with the cameras. The N3 Flip brings a Hasselblad collaboration and the first telephoto cam on a flip foldable. The N3 Flip also packs a new flagship-grade Dimensity 9200 chipset. The design is quite similar to the previous models. The hinge folds flat, with no gap between the two halves. But the phone is made from Gorilla Glass Victus this time around, and you have a slightly thinner aluminum frame. On the frame, you'll find a new alert slider, just like you'd get on OnePlus phones, which come from the same parent company, BBK. And on top of that, the Find N3 Flip brings splash resistance this time around, rated at IPX4. The secondary screen is the same as the previous models. It's a 3.26-inch OLED with a 720p resolution. While last year this sort of display was relatively large, this year the competition has already moved on to edge-to-edge outer screens. What you do get this year is better functionality than before. For example, you can choose from a wider variety of digital pets to live on your lock screen, and they're more interactive. You still don't need to feed them at least. Even better, while last year's cover screen was limited to widgets, now you can get regular apps to run. Compatibility varies on a per-app basis, but you can get all of your Google apps, YouTube, Netflix, and even apps like Reddit to run normally. And besides those, you also get a selection of widget-like mini-apps. These include the weather, a timer, and even an app full of small games. Of course, the screen can show you notifications and give you quick toggles for changing basic settings. These toggles aren't accessible without unlocking the phone first, which you'll do with the side-mounted fingerprint reader. Let's move on to the inner display, which is also the same as last year. It's a 6.8-inch foldable OLED with a 1080p resolution and a 120Hz refresh rate. The crease where the phone folds over is quite subtle, and this display is quite sharp and contrasty. The colors are quite accurate, and there's support for HDR10+ video. The brightness is very good here too. We measured a maximum of 520 nits with the manual slider, and this can boost to almost 1000 nits in auto mode when exposed to bright light. And the 120Hz refresh rate smooths out your swiping and scrolling, and since this is an LTPO panel, it can dial all the way down to 1 Hz when idling to save energy. We couldn't test this as the Android refresh rate counter only showed 120 or 60 Hz. You can get the phone with 256 or 512 gigs of storage on board, but that isn't expandable through microSD. The N3 Flip has a pair of stereo speakers for your audio. They have very good loudness, and the sound quality is good, with some bass, good vocals, and well-presented highs. I'll drop a link so you can check out for yourself. The interface of the N3 Flip is Oppo's ColorOS 13.2 on top of Android 13. Basically the same interface that you'd get on any recent Oppo, Realme, or OnePlus phone. There's plenty of software support here. Oppo has promised 4 years of major updates and 5 years of security patches. If you'd like to find out more about the specific features of ColorOS, you can check out our dedicated video about Realme UI 4.0, which is basically identical. Like I mentioned before, the Find N3 Flip packs some high-tier hardware under the hood, with a Mediatek Dimensity 9200 chipset. It's built on a 4nm process, and is able to provide flagship-grade performance. And it also has support for advanced memory tech, like UFS 4.0 and LPDDR5X RAM. In benchmarks, the performance is much better than that of the Find N2 Flip and its Dimensity 9000+. This is one of the best chipsets on the market, and it can handle basically everything you can throw at it. We did notice though that the N3 Flip will hold back its CPU performance unless you enable the high-performance battery setting, which allows it to work at its full potential. When it comes to the thermals, the results weren't stellar, as you'd expect from a small foldable. In our prolonged CPU stress test, we observed significant thermal throttling. The GPU throttling is even harsher though, down to less than 40%. But despite these findings, the phone never got hot or even that warm. Just like the previous model, the Find N3 Flip is powered by a 4300 mAh battery. The battery life is along the same lines too, with an overall endurance rating of 92 hours. Also like last year, the phone supports 44-watt charging, but comes with a 67-watt adapter. With it, we were able to charge the Find N3 Flip from 0 to 65% in half an hour. And a full charge took just 51 minutes, the fastest result out of all of the current flip phones. Now we have the Find N3 Flip's triple cameras. There's a 50 megapixel main cam, a 32 megapixel 2x telephoto zoom, and a 48 megapixel ultrawide cam. The main cam is the same as the previous models, but now with OIS. The telephoto and ultrawide are both new here. The main camera saves 12.5 megapixel photos by default, and those are excellent. There's abundant detail with incredibly balanced processing. The sharpening is just right, and fine details look quite natural. The photos have high contrast and wide enough dynamic range, and the color reproduction is accurate too. The portrait mode has 2 zoom levels, each of which mimics a particular Hasselblad lens. No matter which mode you select, the portraits are excellent. The subject is detailed, sharp, and well exposed, with natural skin tones and proficient separation from the background. The Find N3 Flip can use night mode processing automatically if a scene is dark enough, or you can force the mode on. The resulting photos are top-notch, they're incredibly detailed, there's no noise, the colors are realistic and lively, and the dynamic range is rather wide. The main camera captures great 4K videos. They have a high amount of resolved detail, with a natural rendition. There's true-to-life colors and a wide dynamic range. Electronic stabilization is always on, and it does a solid job of smoothing things out. Unfortunately, if you record with the main camera while the phone is closed, with the cover screen as a viewfinder, you'll only get 1080p videos without stabilization. Even if you try with the phone open, as soon as you turn on the cover screen, the resolution switches to 1080, a weird limitation. The low-light 4K videos from the main camera are pretty good. The detail is enough, the color rendition is accurate, and the noise is kept low. The dynamic range is adequate too. Now let's talk about the telephoto cam's 2x zoomed photos. They come out at 8 megapixels, and they're impressive. They have plenty of detail with balanced processing and no visible noise. The dynamic range is wide, and the white balance and color rendition are a match to the primary camera. The telephoto also provides a 5x zoom via a crop from the center of the 32 megapixel sensor. They're a bit softer than the 2x ones, but they're still really good, with the same balanced rendition. At night, the telephoto cam is rarely used. Instead, the Find N3 Flip will use a digital crop from the main camera. While these photos are bright and colorful, they're soft and lacking in detail. 4K videos from the telephoto camera are good. They have enough detail, wide dynamic range, lovely colors, and overall realistic rendition. Next, the 48 megapixel ultrawide camera, which saves 12 megapixel photos. These have a super wide field of view, and yet the corners are sharp enough and straightened well. The photos are detailed with accurate colors and the same balanced rendition we saw across the other cameras. Since the ultrawide has autofocus, you can use it to take close-up macro shots. These are lovely with superb detail, excellent sharpness, lively colors, and wide dynamic range. In low light, the ultrawide camera always used the automatic night mode. These photos are very good. They're well exposed and quite detailed, with low noise, excellent color saturation, and wide dynamic range. 4K videos from the ultrawide are excellent across the board, with great detail, noise reduction, color rendition, and dynamic range. Now let's move on to selfies. There is the option to shoot them in the same way as a typical smartphone, with the 32 megapixel front-facing cam, which has autofocus. The photos are alright, but they have average detail and an overall soft look. One of the best things about a foldable phone is that you can also snap selfies using the higher quality rear cameras, using the cover screen as a viewfinder. These selfies are excellent, as you'd expect. The subject is detailed and sharp, dynamic range is good, colors are accurate, and there's even a lovely natural bokeh. So, that's the Oppo Find N3 Flip. In many ways, it's the same phone as the previous model, and that's not a bad thing. The Find N2 Flip already had an elegant and tight design and folding mechanism, bright OLED displays, and good battery life and charging speed. But on top of all that, this year you get splash proofing, a more functional cover screen, and one of the best camera setups around. There are a few shortcomings. The cover screen isn't edge-to-edge, the chipset throttles, and you can't record 4K selfie videos with the main cam. But even so, the Find N3 Flip is one of the best flip foldables out there right now, and it's worth recommending. Thanks for watching, guys. If you're looking for alternatives to the Oppo Find N3 Flip, You can check out our reviews of the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5 and the Motorola Razr 40 Ultra. Let us know what you think, and I'll see you on the next one.